Week 12 was another tough week with injuries and some players underperforming. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the top players you should add via the waiver wire for week 13. Let's get right into it. We're going to start with our running backs. Kyren Williams with the Los Angeles Rams is a very good player for you to consider adding at the running back position. Henderson was waived. Cam Akers is a part of that rotation. However, Kyren Williams played more, had slightly more carries with 11 carries, 34 yards, 3 receptions for 25 yards. Again, the Rams, in my opinion, season is simply over, and they really need to see what they have in Kyren Williams. The Henderson situation didn't work. Cam Akers situation almost didn't work, but they decided to keep him and they worked things out. So he is still a part of the Rams backfield. But again, I don't see the playoffs in their future. More injuries are piling up for the Rams, and it makes sense to see if Kyren Williams is going to be that potential lead running back for the Rams franchise. So consider picking Kyren Williams up. A surprise add is Zenobia Knight with the New York Jets. Michael Carter is dealing with a low ankle sprain, so we don't know what his availability is going to be for week 13. James Robinson was a surprise healthy scratch. So pretty much it was Knight, Johnson, and Carter until he got hurt. Knight had a solid game, 14 carries, 69 yards, 3 receptions for 34 yards. He has been waiting for his opportunity and he looked really good. We know that Brees Hall is not coming back this year. Apparently, they don't seem 100% high on Robinson because it simply doesn't make sense to, in the middle of the season, potential playoff team to not have Robinson available, who is the more seasoned back. So he must be in an unfavorable role right now for the Jets. And Knight, it makes sense to pick him up because, again, he was in the mix, played very well. He was on the field more than Ty Johnson, who, if Carter is unable to go and say Robinson is another healthy scratch, it will be a combination of Knight and Johnson. I do believe Knight will have the lead back role with Johnson being that third down back. And Johnson was very productive week 12. So if you picked him up and played him, whether that was in DFS or if you were desperate for a flex play, Johnson had a solid game. And again, if you are considering these two guys, then I would say Knight. Another very good ad is JaMycal Hasty with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Travis Etienne left the game early with a foot injury, which scared the hell out of most of us. They're saying he's good to go, could have came back, but they wanted to be cautious. You know, he missed all of his rookie season with a foot injury. So I can understand it. And I understand that if you played him week 12, you pretty much didn't get much out of him. So hopefully he is able to play week 13. But if you do have him on your roster, then it does make sense for you to put a claim in for Hasty, because in the event that he has any setbacks this week and he's unable to go week 13, then Hasty will be the featured back. He was solid week 12 with 12 carries, 28 yards, inefficient as a runner, but receiving wise, 5 receptions, 67 yards, and 1 touchdown, which is solid. And you'll probably see him in that role in the event that Travis is unable to go week 13. So if you have him, you want to definitely monitor his practice throughout the week just to see what they are reporting and what is going on. Because if he's unavailable, you want to have someone who will see a lot of volume, and Hasty would be that lead back. Some people may want to pick up Henderson. I believe that Hasty would be the lead back. Henderson is just being added to the team. Hasty, to me, would be the guy. Another solid add is Gus Edwards with the Baltimore Ravens. He is back, y'all. Hopefully, he is back and healthy for the remainder of the season. Okay, he is the lead back. Okay, 16 carries, 52 yards, one touchdown, week 12. He is going to continue to be the lead back until Dobbins returns, but I do believe he is still going to be heavily involved once Dobbins returns. I do believe they'll take the conservative approach with Dobbins because you figure came back from injury, had to go out again, dealing with the same issue. So they're going to want to make sure that he is 100% healthy and ready to go. So again, Gus Edwards is a very, very good add this week. If he is the lead back, like we know he is, you want to have a lead running back on your team, whether he is sitting on your bench, any event that you have to put him in your starting lineup due to injuries, players just not performing. He's a very good player to have on your bench and potentially add to the starting lineup any event that injuries, poor performance occurs going forward. The playoffs are coming around. You don't want to only focus on your starting lineup. You want to make sure you have reliable players on the bench because injuries are a whole lot part of the game, and you want to be prepared and have the best available players available to you on your team, not on waivers trying to fight for players because you don't want to get in that battle to where you don't have the highest claim and you're trying to get a player who's going to help your team. So plan accordingly and add these players. Let's talk about some wide receivers. Matt Collins with the Las Vegas Raiders. He had a nice week 12, 4 receptions, 63 yards, and a touchdown. Very good production. Again, Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller are still on IR. We do not know when they're going to return this season. So who else are they going to throw the football to outside of Devontae Adams? It would have to be Matt Collins. So if you have the opportunity to pick him up, pick him up. If nothing else, you want to add a productive player to your team instead of seeing that productive player go to your competition's team and your competition beat you with that productive player that you just said, nah, I'm not going to even consider picking him up. Another very good ad is Treylon Burks with the Tennessee Titans. This rookie has gone through a lot so far this season. So if you have him in a dynasty league and you held on to him, great patience, all of my fantasy football managers, because this has been hard. You drafted him high. You expected him to just come in and just have this breakout season like Olave, and it's not happening. A lot of injury issues, the asthma, just not ready. But he is now fully healthy. He is involved. He is starting to see more time on the football field and a very good week 12 and a solid week 13 with he had a very good week 11 and a solid week 12 with 4 receptions and 70 yards, and he was able to score his first touchdown off of a Derrick Henry fumble. Thanks, Henry, for fumbling that football. But if you can pick up Treylon Burks, pick him up. He, in my opinion, is a must-add player. He's going to be one of those players later on during the playoffs who may be the difference between you moving on to the next round and hanging it up for the rest of the season. So if you can pick him up, pick him up. Another solid add is Donovan Peoples-Jones with the Cleveland Browns. I believe his production will increase even more so with Deshaun Watson. And we all know Watson is returning week 13. You know that Peoples-Jones has a very good rapport with Jacoby Brissett. It's been more consistent this season, but just imagine having a better quarterback getting you the football. So if you can pick up Donovan Peoples-Jones, pick him up. I think he's going to be one of those players that will help you get over the hump in the playoffs at that flex spot. Week 12, another not a good week. Not a good week at all, but he has had more productive games than inefficient games. So week 12, nothing really to talk about, but 2 receptions and 16 yards versus Tampa. He has a very good matchup week 13 versus the Texans. So if you can add him, very good flex play, or in DFS, consider Donovan Peoples-Jones. Another very good add at the wide receiver position is Darius Slayton with the New York Giants. He is their number one wide receiver. They don't have anybody better than him at the wide receiver position. he should have a much better game going into week 13. Week 12 was very hard. It's Thanksgiving, playing the number one defense in the Dallas Cowboys, playing against one of the top young DBs in the game. And he still was very productive. 6 receptions for 63 yards. Most people probably thought he wouldn't even do that. But nonetheless, Slayton should be on your bench. Don't let him be on somebody else's bench because, again, there's no guarantee that the New York Giants will be able to sign OBJ. So if they don't sign him, then you know that Slayton will continue to be the number one wide receiver for the Giants. And we have to face the fact that he's going to be their guy at the wide receiver. He has a rapport with Daniel Jones. Understand that they're not going to be a pass first team. It's going to be all around, all about Saquon Barkley and then trying to get Slayton involved, which they have done since he has been elevated to the starting unit. So what I'm saying is, if you can pick up Slayton, pick him up. Another solid add is Van Jefferson with the Rams. Cooper Kupp, most likely done for the season. Allen Robinson, another player who may not be available anymore this season. And that is a concern if you're a Rams fan. But for fantasy purposes, Van Jefferson is looking like the wide receiver who is stepping up with these two other wide receivers out over the last 3 games. 9 receptions, 97 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Solid production for a player returning from injury and going to get an opportunity to see even more targets. You got to also understand that Matthew Stafford may not even be available for the remainder of the season. So I do believe the Rams are going to continue to want to play Williams to see what he can do as a running back and then see, is Van Jefferson the other guy alongside a Cooper Kupp. So he should see more targets. I'm not saying he's going to be efficient every game, but the volume will be there because they're going to be losing these games. So they're going to have to throw the football a whole lot. So if you can pick up Van Jefferson, just pick him up and put him on your bench. Sometimes the best strategy is picking up a solid performing player and putting him on your bench because you don't want that player to be playing against you. You want that player to be playing for you, whether that is on your bench because you have other players who are better, but you don't want anybody that you just decided, oh, I'm not even picking them up, and let your opponent use that player to beat you. You always want to put the best team forward, and that includes your bench. I don't care if you're number one. You always look to better your overall roster, especially for the playoffs, because you have to understand that injuries are a part of the game. And just because you have the number one record today doesn't mean that you're injury away from being bumped out of the playoffs in the first round. So plan accordingly. Let's talk about some tight ends. Austin Hooper with the Tennessee Titans has been better the last several games. My goodness, my goodness. We expected him to perform like this season. He simply hasn't, but he has been much better the last few games. 12 receptions, 107 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns the last 3 games. And again, he's playing more involved. And going forward, I do expect him to continue to be consistent. It was always there. It's just a matter of maybe him and Tannehill developing a rapport. Earlier, and you heard stories about him not blocking as well. Well, whatever he's doing, he's on the football field now. He is a tight end who is going to catch the ball. So he's a very good receiving tight end. So you already know that there's been tight ends who simply haven't played well, tight ends who are on IR. You have Pitts on IR. You have Waller on IR. I mean, the injuries are insane, and you're just looking for someone to produce. I don't care if you have a top tight end in your start lineup. Secure another tight end to be able to come off the bench for you in the event that something happens. Again, you don't want to get caught slipping going into the playoffs with a major injury and you don't have any reliable options on your bench. So make sure you plan accordingly. Another solid option at the tight end position is Foster Moreau with the Las Vegas Raiders. Again, Darren Waller is on IR as well as Hunter Renfrow. Now, Devontae Adams is obviously the top dog. And then I would say Mac Hollins would be next in line for those targets. And then Foster. Now, Foster is touchdown dependent, in my opinion. But again, if he is going to see the volume and he's going to some weeks get a touchdown, either or, it's still good considering there are tight ends who are on IR, tight ends who aren't performing well. So if he's a player that you can utilize, whether that is to get you across the finish line with a win for week 13, then you have to do so. Sometimes a player is good for 1 week. Week 12, 3 receptions for 33 yards and a touchdown. Again, touchdown dependent, but at the end of the day, he was able to produce. I'm hoping that they're going to get him more involved, but at the end of the day, he can be that player who may fill in for you 1 week. And then that's what it may take for you to get in the playoffs. If you're one of those teams that's trying to fight for the last playoff spots and you're struggling at the tight end position, he may be able to help you. Or Austin Hooper. Now, let's talk about some quarterbacks. I have one quarterback you should consider adding. That's Ryan Tannehill with the Tennessee Titans. He's been so much better the last 3 games. 879 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Again, Tennessee Titans are a run-first team. Everyone knows that. But in order for them to make a deep playoff run, he's going to have to be able to throw the football. And you're getting Austin Hooper more involved, and Treylon Burks is more involved. And these 3 are connecting. And so Ryan Tannehill is starting to produce and be more consistent. And if you are trying to ensure that you have a reliable quarterback on your bench going into the playoffs, or if you have a bye week coming up and you need to play a quarterback, then Ryan Tannehill will be the guy that can help you. So consider adding Ryan Tannehill. All right, y'all, make sure you leave some comments and let me know your thoughts on the players we recommended you add week 13 via the waiver wire in fantasy football. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have a lot of great content, which is going to help you going forward for the remainder of the season and in the playoffs. Y'all have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast.